Stevenson from Links FM 102.2. We've gathered here today to sort of witness a drink driving crash. Obviously we've got to Christmas time now and New Year is approaching. We'll be going out to parties, starting to drink and hopefully not drink and driving. But if you have had too many and you are out and about driving someone home maybe as a favour, this is a scenario of what could happen if you're over the limit. It's a crash here with two vehicles, as you can see, and the police have just arrived on scene. This is Lee from Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue, who's a retained firefighter, and just explain to us what's happening right now, Lee.
So basically we've got an RTC involving two vehicles, and obviously the police are on scene at this present time. The other emergency services, the ambulance and the fire rescue service, will now have been alerted to attend this RTC.
So the police are always first on scene in an incident like this, and what do they do when they get here? Do they start checking for breathalyzation? Is that the first thing they do?
Well, not really looking at life risk, really. They'll try and do some emergency first aid up until the emergency services get here, and as soon as they get here, they'll more or less take over from the police and try and, well, attempt to rescue the casualties and do whatever's necessary to maintain life.
Okay, we see this gentleman who's just stepped out of the car here. Seems he's... So the fire and rescue have done a assessment of the collision scene, and this gentleman here is a suspect of drink driving, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, the police have assessed the scene. It's become quite obvious that obviously the driver of the KA is showing signs of possibly intoxication. So at the minute they're making a temporary arrest.
So when they arrest the drink driver, what kind of consequences can that have on the driver who's actually been over the limit in the long run and short run?
Basically, it can be a ban of what particular type of ban, I'm not too sure, but obviously we all know ourselves that it is a serious offence and the police do take it very, very seriously.
And obviously then you get a criminal record, and if you're about this age now, you'll be starting to look for jobs, or if not now, in the next couple of years, and of course that will affect your credibility to be able to apply for a job when you've got a criminal record. And a lot of companies now, if they do offer you a job and you've got criminal records for drink driving, then if you have to drive a company car or such, you won't be able to do that. You'll limit the amount of jobs you can apply for, and it sort of ruins your life. How long will that criminal record stay for you? Would it stay for your life?
Well, I think it stays on record, but obviously on your licence, after a certain period of time, I believe that is removed. But what the timescale on that is, I'm not too sure. Obviously, that's up to the police.
So we had Declan, who was the suspected drink driver who's being talked to the police at the moment, and I believe Mandy, who is the innocent driver in this collision, is now being talked to by the police officer, and she's just sort of checking if she's okay, what sort of happened, her statement behind the crash.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously the police are staying with Mandy and obviously the second casualty, obviously trying to just make sure that they can maintain obviously life really. As it is at the moment, obviously the police officer will be getting certain amount of information from those casualties, and that will be passed on to the other emergency services as soon as they arrive on the scene.
And why hasn't the police officer tried to sort of get them out of the car at the moment, Mandy and the passenger Becky?
Yeah, what they'll try and do is obviously they'll establish the state of the injuries, and then obviously they'll try and leave in situ up until the emergency services come, because one of the things we don't want to do is to move them and inflict further injury.
And roughly, what's the response? I see the fire engines arrived now. What sort of response time would be on average for a collision like this?
It depends really. It depends where the location is. Obviously, we live in a rural area. Obviously, this time of year, we know for a fact, obviously, there's a lot of farm traffic on the roads, so that can obviously impact on the progression of the fire and rescue attending the scene. So, we could be anywhere up to 10 to 20 minutes attending the scene.
So now, after the fire officers have attended on scene, the police officers, do they stand back then and just let the fire officers do?
Yeah, what they'll do now is obviously now fire and rescue's on scene, they'll take control of this, but also they'll try and obviously preserve evidence as well upon investigation. Obviously the guy with the white helmet, that is the officer in charge of the appliance. He'll be doing a dynamic risk assessment now of the scene, and what they'll be doing now is putting some first measures in place. And the first thing we're going to do now is stabilise the vehicle. It's very important that we keep the vehicle stable as we can when we're working on it.
These chocks just go underneath the car body and place when the hoop and trying to cut later on that.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, the stabilisation will be revisited during the rescue, because as we start moving the vehicle and putting parts on it and attempting to make a rescue, the vehicle will change its stability, so we will have to keep stabilising it.
And there was a vehicle fire in this case, if there was a fire.
If there's a vehicle fire, obviously we are fully aware that obviously that may occur. So we've got a hose rig here, and not only that, we've got a right now extinguisher which we put out where the equipment plates are going to be made.
Okay. And at this point, would the road already be closed, or would the road have been closed? Obviously, when it's an accident, roads often get closed. Do police officers do that as soon as they arrive, obviously, or after they assess the damage?
Yeah, the priority is if the fire rescue is first on the scene, then we will possibly close the road. We've got the authority to do that. But mainly, if the police are on the scene, we want to turn that their main focus is to maintain line and rescue the passengers.
And as we're approaching New Year's especially, people will be going out to evenings and maybe staying over at a friend's house and not driving that night. And they've got the right to drive back in the morning, but actually, no, often it's not, is it?
Oh, no, it's not. No, definitely not. Alcohol is making the system for 48 hours. That's why we're also talking about it being okay to drive. I think we've brought up everyone on the road when it comes to
and there is a legal limit, isn't there, when you are going up to drink? What is the official rules, example of that? If you're going out to a pub for lunch or something like that?
it's not really our little alcohol we need, until we take over the limit. Obviously, there is a set limit, but at the same time, as far as the car rescue is concerned, there is no limit.
So what's happening here at the moment? First aid on the ambulance has arrived, as the paramedics are doing first aid, are they, or trying to get the passengers out without any spinal injuries?
So where we are with the moment, we're at the stage where obviously the ambulance are now attending the scene. They're talking to the OIC, who's obviously got information which they require. Because the fire rescue was there before the ambulance, we relay to the condition of casualties upon our arrival.
More often than not, it's the police relaying the information to the firefighters and they will refer to the paramedics in this case.
Yeah, that's correct, because obviously there's quite a bit of information which obviously the paramedics need to know, because they can have things like that to maintain line, why we're trying to get the casualties out of the vehicle.
And this device down here, this is assumed to cut open the vehicle, if need be.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of our rapid intervention here. That's our hydraulic rescue equipment. What we can actually do, that's a dual function. We can actually put, and not only that, we can spread the rapid equipment as well. You can probably see we've got, they'll have an equipment book which will start putting certain bits of equipment in. So what they'll actually do is they might go back and forth from there using special equipment to carry on the fire departments.
And the impact of this crash at the moment, what impact speed would they be going at? If say the drink driver was travelling at how many miles per hour, would this happen?
I would say, anywhere let's say sort of 40 miles per hour this impact. Bear in mind, if you're going 20 miles an hour, and obviously you sustain an impact such as this, straight away you know for the fact that the damage is what we can actually see, the damage in the vehicle, that is subject to spinal injuries there, not only that, neck injuries.
And obviously that's shattering as well, caused by one damage.
Yeah, that's an indication for the paramedics, and not only that, for the fire rescue as well. It's evidence which you get from the witness screen to say if the casualties have been sustained an impact to the forehead.
And is it standard practice to then assume that all passengers have been injured spinally or neck injuries?
We always tend to give away some worst case scenario. Yeah, with an impact like this, there's nothing to assure us that. What we're trying to do now is stabilise the casualty and try and limit the movement so we can't inflict any further injuries.
And I see, even though the passenger at the front of the vehicle, they're trying to get the back windscreen off, are they? To gain access?
Yeah, what we're going to do now, obviously, we're going to take the rear tailgate off and try and get access to remove the casualty. As it is at the moment, you can see the OIC is speaking to the paramedic and they're negotiating how to remove this casualty. What we do need to understand is that obviously the paramedic is a specialist as far as injury is concerned. Fire and rescue is a specialist in removing the casualty. So we do work really closely with teams in this situation.
So the best way is to get the passenger out the back and then onto that stretcher and into the ambulance.
That's right. What we're trying to do now as well is we're working with something we call the golden hour. What we need to do is to look at getting the casualty out, transfer to hospital, and give the specialist treatment within this golden hour.
So you use an hour, then you've got to get it done.
Statistics say that obviously the golden hour is very, very important. You know, if you can get somebody within that time, then you can, best chance of
within the space of 10 minutes or less, they've already got starting to dismantle the car and assess the situation. What about when the car was actually sort of embedded into the other car? Is there travelling at a much higher speed?
Yeah, I mean,
How would it separate both cars first?
We try not to. We're trying to preserve everything. People understand that, yeah, obviously, remove the casualty main priority is to stay alive, but also looking to try and preserve the scene as much as we can, so the investigation can be carried out quickly.
So you spoke about earlier the officer in charge from the fire and rescue team was talking to paramedic as well. Clear instructions are they relayed from the officer in charge to the team to make sure they all know what they're doing and they're running to the same hymn sheet?
Yeah, basically the officer in charge is obviously walking around the vehicle, obviously looking at what each individual firefighter is doing, but not only that, it's what they're doing as a team. So he's assessing the situation all the time and giving some clear instructions to the individuals.
And if this will happen in a ditch, for example, is there a risk of the cars and the passengers falling over the ditch if they're, I guess that was part of the stabilisation, but often if they're on a wedge, they can't really do that, can they?
Well, we've got some special equipment now, we call it Standfast, and that will stabilise the car as much as you see it to carry out a rescue. What you need to understand is the car is in a ditch and it doesn't have a problem with needing the water. We do have a slick rescue team. We've also been mobilised to the road traffic division as well, because they've got all those special equipment to deal with vehicles that want water.
And how would they assess who to get out first, basically, passenger terms?
Now they'll prioritise. Obviously, that's all down to the initial assessment. It's not something what obviously when the ambulance are on scene, we'll use their specialism to give us that information. But obviously, if the ambulance aren't there, then obviously it will be down to the officer in charge to say, right, obviously this is the casualty and we need to get me out first.
We see Mandy's out first. She's got a head injury, and would that least that you'd expect from a crash like this, travelling at 50 miles per hour?
Yeah, obviously she sustained an head injury, but obviously, you know, the head injury can lead to further complications. Regarding that, obviously, assessment in the hospital will need obviously what further injuries she's got. Even though you can't see things externally, it's the ones that you can't see which are the most life-threatening.
I see Becky, the other passenger, has now got a neck brace on to, avoid any further neck and spinal injury. Would Mandy be going off in a second ambulance now, or would they fill the ambulance up with a load of passengers?
Now what they have to do is obviously they'll only take one casualty. What we'll be doing now is sending for another ambulance. This is a typical scenario. Obviously, the ambulance service may be dealing with other emergencies, but limited to resources, so we have to work with what we've got at this present time. It may be that the air ambulance may be called as well. Not today, unfortunately.